Hello everybody and welcome! This is one of my favorite videos to do where I look back and re-rank all the player cards from an expansion 1 year later. With Hemlock Vale, we did this last year in 2 videos, breaking it down into Investigators and Level 0 and then XP cards. We're doing the same, except I've cut out the Investigators from these ranking videos, just because I feel like I always would rank the Investigators high, because they're all very good. And it did not really interest me that much to just be like, oh yeah, this Investigator's good, I'm going to give them a 4, right? A 4.5, right? So we're going to just be following just the player cards here in terms of like the cards that go in your deck, not the Investigators. So, yeah, that's this. Let me talk about my wonderful system for how I am going to rate, but notably, chat is also going to be ranking these as well, so make sure to join me on stream where I stream every Tuesday and Friday, Arkham Horror the card game. So, let's start at the bottom, because that's just easier to explain. This one are cards that I think would never leave my binder unless I am looking at playing those in a challenge run, notably the challenge of play every card. As well, if I see someone else bring these to the tables, I am unlikely to be surprised if they, I'm likely to be incredibly surprised if they do anything. If they do anything, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong, but if I just have the exact same thing where I'm like, this card does nothing, I am happy with my 1.0 rating. 1.5 is better than 1.0 because I see them leaving the binder for reasons, but I think those reasons are very narrow, and I think overall they are quite outclassed. 2 are cards that are below average. I think these cards are like 1 and 1.5 are what I would consider to be bad cards, and 2 are cards that are not good, but I wouldn't call them bad, but they are trending towards more bad than they are trending towards good. These are also cards that are very nice if you have a lot of pieces working around them, but that says more about all of the other pieces rather than the individual card, in my opinion. 2.5 are cards that I think are ultimately just fine. They're not going to do anything crazy. They're going to be okay in your level 0 deck. You're probably going to upgrade out of them. And also cards that, like the 2.0, work with a lot of other pieces, but not as many pieces as the 2.0. 3 is now when we get into the good stuff. These are cards that I would likely keep in my deck from the start of the campaign to the end of the campaign, or I'm happy to upgrade into them later on in the campaign. 3.5, much like 3, but just getting better and better. Same with 4. These are like cards that I think that are like making a big impact. 4.5 are like so close to being just bonkers, and 5.0 are what I consider to be the bonkers card from the set. Before we get in this, while I was putting all these cards together, Hemlock Vale actually was a pretty good set. There are some stuff here that turned out to be much better than some people thought they were going to be in the community, and also some things that were not as good as people thought they were going to be in the community. So I'm very excited to dive in and get this going. But first off, we're going to start with Katana. So, let me go with the... get my poll for chat. Alright, and I'll give you guys 1 minute to vote on this. Alright, Katana. So I'm not going to read the cards here, I don't think, but I do want them to be big on the screen for me. I do want to do that. Actually, no, I should read them. I should. I forgot that I have this up here for everyone who is watching at home. Or listening at home. So 4 cost, 2 hand slots, item, weapon, melee. Fight, you get +2 fist for this attack. If you succeed by exactly 2, may exhaust Katana, deal +2 damage with this attack. As a lightning bolt, exhaust Katana, fight, use foot instead of fist for this attack. Okay, so I probably gave this a 2 last year, right? Katana, I gave it a 2. So I think this card is actively worse than I thought it was going to be. So it's probably, I'm going to just tell you, it's probably not going to get a 2 again this year. And it's trending downward for me. So let's see what chat gave it before I dive too deep, because then I can get all my ducks in a row. 2.3 from chat. And this is my favorite, to see the difference between when it's all said and done. I agree with you that it got better with more precision stuff. But I don't think, for me personally, it is a good card because of that. I've seen it played a few times by other people, and I've played it once myself, and it actively caused the game to go bad because you have a weapon that mostly does 1 damage at a time. You do get the extra attack, and I know there's builds you can do with it. Again, I'm not going to be saying that this card is unplayable. I am going to be giving it a 1.5 though. Well, we should go into portrait mode, baby. Look at that. They're so much bigger now. And I do think that it requires a lot, like a lot around it to make it function very well. And then, controversial opinion, but I think even when you build around it a lot, it's going to fall apart still. Like, it's still like, just like you could do like better things with your hand slots and a weapon. Because, like, there's builds you can do. I already know them, right? Like, you play Katana, you play things that can alter tests, and then your alter test results, and then you also play a bunch of kill spells to make your Katana better. And I think it's a cool deck, but I don't think it's particularly a good deck. So I'm going to give Katana a 1.5. Next up, we got the Ancestral Token, which has proven to be, over the year of playing with it, a very good Bless enabler. So Ancestral Token right here. I gave it a 3.5 last year. Chat gave it a 4. 3 cost, takes up the accessory slot, soaks for 2 horror, luckily. As a reaction, after defeat an enemy, exhaust Ancestral Token, add Bless tokens to the Chaos Bag equal to that enemy's printed health to a max of 5. Hey, Atomic Z, 28 months of the Golden Table. Thank you for your support. So my favorite thing about Ancestral Token is that it has 2 horror soak for some reason. Because I don't know about all of you, but when I play Ancestral Token, my thought process is just like, this is here to give me blesses. And then I'm like, oh man, I took some horror. And then you're like, oh, I'll put it on my Ancestral Token, right? I don't necessarily agree, but I don't disagree with the statement that's in chat, which is, it's a card that's so good, it's worth slotting even without trying to do anything bless. I don't disagree. I think that the card is fine to run if you're not running bless tokens. Sorry, this should be 1, 2, 3. Chat gave it a 4. Nice job, chat. Oh, sorry, wrong one. This one. Well, I don't disagree with that statement. I do disagree with the fact that Bless tokens do anything if you're not taking advantage of them. I don't think Bless tokens actually matter. Likewise, where I don't think Curse tokens matter. I think most of the time when you play Bless tokens and you're just filling the bag up, if you're not taking advantage of them, you're just passing your test by more, which you can build around if you're a rogue, but I don't see it happening. I don't see people doing that in combination with it, right? However, I do think this card is very good. Do I think it's much better than I thought? Because I gave it a 3.5 last year. Do I think this is worth a 4? It's very good in Bless decks. I would never play it outside of a Bless deck personally, so I think I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think I'm happy with my rating last year. I think it's done exactly what I thought it was going to do. And I think the nice thing about Ancestral Token is that it gives Bless decks... it's what Bless decks needed to really, really function, right? Like... I think that, like, yes, you could do marginal Bless decks in just Innsmouth, but most of them revolved around Keep Faith, Tempt Fate, Sister Mary, and Hemlock Vale did a lot to make the decks as a whole more consistent. And And that's one of the things I'm very curious about, if they ever revisit Bless and Curse when you don't have cards like this, if we're just going to get more of them. So that's kind of the thing that I'm very interested about. This is a whole other segue. And I've been trying to not talk too much in detail about my thoughts on Legacy and Current because we don't know. But if there's one thing I know about Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, we're going to see a lot of cards that are similar to one another. And then a few like standout things. And I'm curious if that is going to hold true for this, because that's kind of just like the trend that happens when a card pool gets really big. But I can't see them making like I don't know, it's an interesting thing. But that's not this video, so why don't we just move on to the next card. I think Ancestral Token's a very good card though. Because I only played in Blessed decks, it's going to be a 3.5 for me. I think the card's good, but I also, funnily enough, with the way I build my Blessed decks, I don't miss it if I don't have it. You know, so it's not as essential as I would think it would be. It's not as necessary. It's good, but it's not like, if I don't have it, I'm not losing. So I think a 3.5 is pretty good. All right, next up we got Cleaning Kit. This was also a very fun card from Hemlock Vale, and I think the design team, hey Lucas, has done a good job of continuing this love of firearms and stuff like that. I think that this is a nice change for the Guardian class, starting to Hemlock and going forward. 3 cost asset, takes up the accessory slot, uses 3 supplies. Supplies on Cleaning Kit may be spent as if they were ammos or supplies or ammos on assets you control. So I think this card's good. I'm probably gonna give it a 3. I think it was impressive throughout the year. I think it's a good card. I like having it in decks. It's just like more gun. I don't really have much to say about it. I think it was just like it kind of did exactly what I was hoping it would do. Oh, I gave it a 3.5 last year. Wow. Gonna give it a 3 this year though. Just as the dust settles, and then you like, not to sound mean, I gave it a 3.6. Whoa, chat! You guys matched the exact same score last year? Good job! Wow! You love to see it. You love to see it. So, I think the thing for me, after playing with Cleaning Kit a few times and seeing Cleaning Kit played, I've thought it's performed very well, but it still has, for me personally, the same issue where, like, I kind of just wish this was like a melee weapon, you know? It does scale very well. Yes, it does scale very well. But I also like having other things in my accessory slots and going for more guns. I'm curious how, like, the Remington might change it, like, if I don't need the Cleaning Kit, if I do want the Cleaning Kit. I think it's a very good card, though. But obviously, I don't think it was as strong as I thought it was on my initial ranking of the card. Yeah, I think it's performed very well in gun decks, and I think it's going to continue to perform very well in gun decks. So I'm going to give this guy a 3. Yeah, we're giving him a 3 this year. All right, next up, we got this weird little guy, the Ofuda, which I'll be honest, I've only played once. And I've actually not seen anyone else play Ofuda. So in that, all things considered, the card can't be very good, right? If I actually haven't seen anybody play it. Anyways, let's see what the card does. 2 cost asset, item charm blessed, uses 1 charge. Replenish this charge the first time a blessed token is revealed at your location each round. As a lightning bolt, choose a non-elite enemy or location and spend 1 charge. That enemy loses the alert, aloof, elusive, and retaliate keywords until the end of the round. It reads better than it plays, I think. I agree, and unfortunately, I also don't think it reads very well. So these tech cards like this, I think would be better if they were like limited uses but permanent, right? And you could not replenish them, right? I think it's, yeah, the interesting part of the ARKHAM card design where effects like this, just kind of don't end up making the cut, you know? Oh, no, you got a 2.1. Oh, man. Chad, you guys gave it a 2.1 this year. I think I'm going to give it a 2, just because, Card is sus. Did you see the card venting astute? Did it go in the vents? Yeah, I played it once, and I cut it pretty quick. And then I don't think the card's bad. Like, I don't think it deserves to be in the 1.0. But I do think, as I talked about earlier in this video, it's trending towards the bad side compared to the good side. So I'm going to give this a 2.0 for myself personally. Okay. So, I actually want to talk about the card a bit more. Campaign dependent, removing Aloof for Whippoorwills, Elusive for half the Hemlock dudes, etc. So the thing about Elusive is I actually find Elusive to be a player positive keyword. I'm glad they tried it out, but I don't think they should use it anymore. I actually think like the keyword is too good so for the players. I think you can actually like game it very well. And I think that was like an unforeseen thing, actually putting it into action. I like it. Yeah, the aloof thing is nice, but at the same time, like, I think there's a lot of just better tech, even for the Whippoorwills in Dunwich. I think there's just like better tech against them, right? And I think that's kind of the issue with Ofuda. I love the flavor of Ofuda, but I think the card, yeah, to quote Astute, is a little bit sus. All right, next up we got Wolf Mask. The first of the masks, these cards caused quite a stir in the ARKHAM community when they were spoiled, where people were asking for Day Zero Taboo. And I remember looking at all this thinking, what the hell is going on? So, Wolf Mask is a 1-cost asset. Limit 1 mask per investigator, uses 2 offerings, replenish one of these offerings after you engage an enemy. As a lightning bolt, spend 1 offering, you get +2 fist or +2 foot for the skill test, limit once per test. When I did this video last year, I'm pretty sure I said that the Wolf Mask was the strongest mask. However, I do not agree with that anymore. I think it is the second strongest mask, but I do still think it is pretty good. I gave it a 4.5 last year, and in my mind, that's crazy talk. Chad, however, doesn't think it's that crazy. They're giving it a 4.1. All right. So, here is my what I've seen people play Wolf Mask. All right. This is why I think this card is less good than everyone thought it was, and also apparently now everyone thinks it is. People play Wolf Mask, and then I watch them boost their fist in other ways, and then they don't use their Wolf Mask anymore. They play a gun or a weapon or a melee weapon that gives a fist boost, and then suddenly they're like, I don't need my Wolf Mask anymore, and they wasted a card slot, an action, and a resource. And that could have been a kill spell instead, right? Like so that Wolf Mask, if it was, let's just say, for example, a Justin staple of toe-to-toe, it would have been much better. I think the Wolf Mask is a good, like, one of. Like, I would start with the Wolf Mask as like a 2 of, and then I would cut it to a 1 of, and I think ultimately I would cut it to a 0 of. However, I'm not upset to have a Wolf Mask going into the end of the campaign, and I think it also, it's a problem of deck building, not Wolf Mask's fault. I agree and disagree with that statement. Because, let's just say okay, let me ask you this, Atomic Z. Let me just talk about this. Let me just counter your point with a point. So let's say in this situation where they don't need the wolf mask, but what if they need the wolf mask and they don't draw it? Are we also blaming the deck building on that one? Or are we blaming the wolf mask? Because if you're blaming the deck building for one and like in the other, that's fine. Like, are we blaming it on both of them? Because then the point is, what is the wolf mask doing, right? And the answer, I think, is nothing. Is like what it comes down to. I think the wolf mask is doing less than we think in the long term. So that's why I think that, while I agree that is a problem of deck building, but I also disagree that I do think it is wolf mask's fault. Because I think that it's less good than it actually is. But I still think it's good. I'm probably going to give it a 3.5. Because the card is still really good, but I don't think it's as good as I thought, which is like a whole point difference. And that's why it was in the video. But I don't think it's the strongest mask, but I don't think any of the masks are going to be above 3.5 for me. But I do not think it is the strongest mask. Which was surprising, I'll be honest. It was a very surprising thing after playing with the masks for a year, when there was one mask that I noted was so much better. Can you guys guess what mask it is? I'd love to know. What mask do you think is my strongest mask after a year of seeing them played and playing with them? Yeah, it's Fox. It's Fox for sure. Fox is a very good mask. Mostly because it's relevant for both icons. All right. I think it was so strong with these contests, the ones you were at least wanted to fail. Yeah, and it's great, like you said, like you even said earlier, Valentine. It's very good in the early game, like the early campaign, when you have to, like, for example, beat Big Butt Baby, for example, at the start of Carcosa, right? But I still think it's a good card. Like, we're splitting hairs over a 3.5 to a 4 here, so I'm not gonna talk about Wolf Mask anymore. But I do think it's less good. It's much less powerful than the community thought it was. And I think like settling at a 3.5 to a 4 is a good place after a year of play. But same grasping hands as a thing. Dude, you're a guardian. Just tank it. That's it. So actually that is the thing that I have learned the most. And it's something that people should keep in mind when it comes to my ratings and stuff like this. I think this is a very important thing to keep in mind, that I think that I am a lot less scared of the encounter set than pretty much like everyone I've played with, except for maybe Travis and Bryn. I don't know why, but I like, even just the whole statement of grasping hands is a thing. I'm like, so I have like, I'll be fine. Like, it's like, I'm not going to run Wolf Mask to boost my fist when my fist is already high, or survive a grasping hands when I could just like tank it or use something else that draws me a card instead, right? So that's something to keep in mind for all of my critique. It has that thing where I view Mythos cards as a lot less scary than I've seen general sentiment from the people I've played with. But that's just because the encounter set doesn't have teeth anymore. And notably, the one encounter card that I think has teeth, people are like complaining about from Hemlock. So, you know, that's just how it is. We need more teeth from our encounter cards, I think. All right, next up we got Absolution. So I'm trying not to look at my score from last year before I get in this, to just kind of like not compare to my last thing. But it's kind of hard to when I'm also trying to get the score for chat. But we're going to try to do this as best as we can. So, Absolution, X cost, reveal 3 random tokens to the Chaos Bag along with Ancestral Tokens. For each non-symbol token revealed, add a Blessed token to the Chaos Bag. For each Blessed token revealed, heal 1 Harbor Investigator or ally asset at your location. I think that this card proved to be not great over the year. However, I actually point to situations where both Travis played it, well, Daniel's playing it right now, but it wasn't really working. It's probably going to be a 2, because I do think it trends to be worse, and most of the time it does nothing. So I'm going to give it a 2. I think that's what I'm gonna do for this one. I'm gonna give it a 2. And I think the main reason is that the card actually rarely does anything. Hey, look at that. I gave it a 2 last year. Wow, good job, Past Justin. Yeah, I just think the card doesn't, like, do enough. And then when it does hit, it doesn't, like, feel like it was worth it. Howbeit, it is a level 0 card. It has 2 brain icons, so, like, it's basically a guts that doesn't replace itself, so, like, that's fine. With all that said, I do think that the card has never really impressed me when I've seen anyone play it, and I think I've only played it like once or twice, and I was like, get this shit out of here immediately. I don't even want to look at it anymore. Yeah, not too much to say there. Next up, we got Guided by Faith. Two-cost event, it's Investigate. You may use Brain instead of Book for this investigation. Before revealing Chaos tokens for this test, add 2 Bless tokens to the Chaos bag. If a Bless or Elder Sign token is revealed during this skill test, discover 1 additional clue at your location. Yeah. So, Guided by Faith... To me, this is like a level 0 Bless deck when I just want like 1 extra way or 2 extra ways if I'm running a 2 of to just get some Bless cards into my level 0 deck. And then I want to remove it ASAP. So I don't really have like, it's not bad. But it's definitely not good. Chat gave it a 2.9. Which is the exact same score you gave it last year, chat. Holy hell. It's a Mystic card in disguise. It definitely is. It definitely is. I think I'm going to give it a 2.5. And I'll talk a bit about it just once I get this in here. Looks like that's what I gave it last year, too. So, the card's not bad, right? It's basically a basic Investigate action that costs 2. Which I know sounds bad. People, like, usually the Mythos cards makes basic Investigates have a punishment. And it's like, this is what that card is essentially doing. But it's adding 2 Bless tokens, which again, it serves that point in like the level 0 Bless deck, where you just want like some redundancy to get Bless tokens in the bag. Now you might be thinking, but why wouldn't I just not play another level 0 card that like does what I want to do but does it better? And that's a great point. You could definitely do that. But if you want that Bless redundancy, Guided by Faith is going to do a fine job until you cut it almost immediately, because you should cut that shit almost immediately. I think it's a fine card. It's not good. It's not bad. It's fine. All the numbers on it are fair. And if you are able to fish tokens out or force something to happen with it, it goes pretty all right. But even then, I think you'll probably cut it pretty soon. All right, man, I did forget that Guardian had a little bit rough in Hemlock. And then, like, the upgrades weren't great either. I remember that. Luckily, Drowned City Guardians, I think, did really nice. Hold up! 1 cost parlay. Choose an enemy location and an item asset in your hand. Perform a fight action against the chosen enemy. If you succeed instead of dealing damage, play the chosen asset, reducing its cost by each point you succeeded by. So, Bryn played this card a lot, which was kind of crazy. I think Bryn played this card in, like, 2 different decks, which was kind of wild to me. So yeah, let me ask a question. Because the fight isn't bolded, is it a basic fight action? You just like punch this guy normally in the face? I don't think I played this card. Because this came out after the Play All Card Challenge. Because that was 2023. I don't know if I played this card. it was ruled to be a basic fight action. And the reason for that is because it's not bolded, right? Because we have some like cards like Obscure that make it bolded, right? Jab's pretty consistent. Nice job, guys. 1.7 to 1.6. Yeah, because is Ursula different? Because I thought, yeah, that's the confusing thing. But as I've learned, yeah, no, this is take an investigate action. It should be the same. That's crazy that it isn't, right? ARKHAM language? Don't get me started. I almost quit. I actually had my first like come to God moment where I was like, maybe I don't like doing this with with a certain card recently. But yeah, that is crazy that this was ruled to be a basic only. I mean, like, again, I actually was fine with it in the Bryn. When Bryn played it, it was kind of weird. Maybe I was thinking of Bryn playing Hold Up more. I don't know. He's played both of them more than once, which is crazy to me. I don't think this card's very good. I like chat. I'm going to give it a 1.5 as well. I think that it does trend on the lower side for sure. I'm going to go with 1.5. Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Task Force. Task Force. Two cost, tactic, double. As this should cost to play Task Force, spend an action, one at a time in any order, choose an investigator at your location. 2. Resolve an action ability on an asset they control without paying its action cost. Move to a connecting location or discover one clue at their location. So this card, I think, was the easiest double card for people to initially see the double value on, right? Because the idea is that you are getting 3 actions for 2 actions, a card, and 2 resources, right? And the actions were pretty fine, right? It was a move, discover a clue, and action, resolve. Someone gets to resolve one of those things. I think the card's good. I think it's like been very impressive every time I've played it, but it's mostly because like it's a good support card. I don't think you want to be playing this solo. I don't think you want to be playing this even in like 2-player. I think it becomes a little bit wibbly. 3.7 from chat. Oh, not 2.7, 3.7. But like in 3 and 4-player, as soon as you become like that flex support, I think this card becomes very versatile. I think I'm gonna give it. I think this might have been one of those cards where it might have been in my Hemlock Vale video I was wrong about. I actually want to find that out. I want to go to Past Justin for a second, and Past Justin was only from a few months ago. Because if it was, I might actually counterspell that video. And say that maybe I was actually wrong about that. And it's just because I think this card fell off. And I think it's because essentially the hype has fallen down. Like, I think the card is, like, good. 5 Hemlock Vale cards I was wrong about. Alright, we have the Mask. We have that. Okay, it was not in there, so I can speak freely. I think this card's still good. I'm gonna give it a 3. I thought maybe it was bumped it to a 3.5 in that video. I mean, we're saying that Guided by Faith wasn't a great card. This is also 2 resources for 1 clue. You don't get a test, but you don't get the 2 blesses. I think that might be the most bad faith take I've seen. That, not in like the sense that it was done on purpose, but I think that's a weird take. Because you also get to resolve an action. Like, I have never seen someone play this card and not get all three, right? And if you're only getting one of them or two of them, then yeah, that's bad. But you need to be able to always be doing all three, which I have never seen not happen. I understand definitely in like lower player counts, it can be harder to hit that. But it costs 2 actions, so you resolve the action and move anyway. Yeah, but no, but this, okay, no. The strength of this card isn't that you are doing all of this. The strength of this card is that you are choosing who does what, right? That's the strength of this card. And that's why I said this card gets more suspect at lower player counts. If you're playing this in solo, there are much, much better things you can be doing. But it's the fact that in 3 or 4 player, you get to choose who does what is what makes this card so strong, right? It's not the fact that you get 3 actions for 2 actions, because that's not a good rate when you consider all things, right? So, like, what this card is, hey, Kluver, you get a clue. Fighter, you fight this guy. Kluver, you move to this location, I'm safeguarding with you. Like, that's the most common play pattern I've seen from Task Force. And that is usually, as you can tell by the way that I referred to a fighter and a Kluver in 3 or 4 player games. So yeah, it's one of those things that, like, I think if you're playing this in 2 player, you can find much better things to run, and you probably should. But in 3 player and 4 player, I think this card is a nice piece. I'm giving it a 3. All right, next up we got Tinker, which always when I read, I think Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. And it's Gary Oldman going Spy from the trailer. Fast, 1 cost, play during only your turn. Attach Tinker to a tool asset in your play area, limit 1 per asset. Attached asset takes up 1 fewer hand slot, 1 fewer hand or accessory slot. I mean, this card's just like a perfect example of a mid card, right? I'm going to give it a 2.5. It doesn't actually do anything. If you use this, if you use Task Force with Trish, you will be able to use Trish's ability. The card's fine though. Like, it's not bad, but it's not good. It doesn't actually like do anything. Yeah, like, it gives you more slots, which is good, but slots necessarily don't win you games, but it's a nice piece to have in your deck if you are planning on using it and like using all those slots. I think the card's fine though. Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more. 2.8. All right. We have 1 Guardian card left, and that is Purified. Max 1 committed per skill test. You may commit Purified to any type of test. If this test is successful, for each point you succeeded by to a maximum of 5, add 1 Bless token or remove 1 Curse token. You guys probably want your poll, huh? Okay, so this card actually is pretty good. Turns out, after playing with this card for a year and trying out a variety of different Bless decks, this is actually a very, very powerful way to add Bless tokens into the bag. Good Bless generator for your fire. Honestly, just good Bless generation at, like, just baseline. Believe me or not, I played it more than I initially thought I would. Ditto. I believe you 100%. I think this card is actually legit for Bless generation. I don't think it's as good as Ancestral Token in a vacuum, but I think it is. I'm debating between a 3 and a 3.5. If I could get crazy with it and add like a 3.25 to this, I definitely would. Let's see what chat gives it. Two, three, and 1. Chat's giving it a 2.7. The opportunity cost is so small. It's literally the smallest. So this card is actually like Keep Faith that you don't have to pay for, and you use it while you're also killing an enemy or getting a clue. It's very good in any investigator who can play this and cards that add stats together. It's very nice for those kind of things. I think I'm going to give it a 3. I don't think I can go to 3.5, but I do think this card is actually pretty legit. It's I mean, maybe 3.5. There are just so many times where I put this card in my deck and then I was like, oh, I'll add 5 Bless tokens. I'll add 5 Bless tokens. I'll add 5 Bless tokens. That's fricked up. No, you know what? I'm going to trust my gut. I'm giving it a 3.5. I'm putting it all the way up. I'm going 3.5. I think this card is actually very good. When I think of Bless Enablers in a lot of decks, I actually think of Purified before Ancestral Token, which is crazy. All right. Is it fricked up? It's fricked up. Because people saw this card and they thought it was going to add like 1 or 2 Bless tokens. But it turns out, when you play Favor of the Sun Ancient Covenant, this just adds 5 Bless tokens. Yeah, I think it's a very nice Bless Enabler. I think it's also a very good Curse Killer, too, if you want to. Alright, let's see how it's done for over there. So you can see that the diff, we actually, Chad, you guys did pretty, you had a lot of zeros. You stayed very similar. I was the one with the biggest drop from Wolf Mask, and then also up from Purified, so. Yeah. Alright. We are on to Seeker cards, and while I make this poll, I'm just going to drink some water because I've been talking for 42 minutes straight. Holy shit. The viewers took a jump. Holy hell. Anyways, Microscope. 2 cost, hand slot. As a reaction, after an enemy location successfully evaded or defeated, exhaust Microscope. Place 1 resource on Microscope as evidence. Double action and investigate. You get +1 book for this investigation for each evidence on Microscope to a max of +3 book. If you succeed, you may spend up to 2 evidence to discover that many additional clues at your location. So it's actually kind of funny. What did I get? I'm going to peek ahead a bit. Let's go to Chemistry Set, and I want to look at Microscope. That's wild. So I was down on Chemistry Set, and I was up on Microscope. And after a year of playing with them, I have reversed it. Chat's given it a 2.8 for Microscope. So I think the awkward thing for Microscope is it continues to have... I just feel like the designers and the players have a different fantasy of what Seeker is, right? The designers sometimes throw these cards where it's like, you're the Seeker who also kills things and evades things. And then it ends up just falling into this thing where it's like, no, I'm here to get clues and that's all I'm doing, right? Lucius likes this card. Lucius will probably like this card. I've refrained from playing the Drowned City Investigators until I get the box, but like, that is... Lucius will enjoy this card. Arguably, and no, it's true. It's true. Anyone invading an enemy or location does make it work. But then, as Travis says for stuff like that, I love putting cards into my deck that only work if my teammates do things, right? And he says that with that classic sardonic tone that Travis likes to speak with, right? And I think that's a very fair point. You can build around it, but then suddenly your teammate's like, sorry, I can't do the thing that I said I was going to do because I need to do this thing instead. And then you look at Microscope and you're like, well, and like, yes, the defeater thing is like, it can happen. It's going to happen. People are going to defeat and evade enemies, but it's harder to put every piece together when instead you can just like put your own pieces together. I do think that the upgraded Microscope notably is a good upgrade, but I think overall level 0 Microscope is actually kind of mid. I'm going to give it a 2.5. But now it's time for probably my favorite card from Hemlock. And I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, because I gave it a 2.5 last year. Chemistry set. 2-cost asset, takes up the accessory slot as an action, exhaust chemistry set, investigate. If you fail by exactly 2, discard chemistry set. Succeed by exactly 0, gain 2 resources. Succeed by exactly 2, draw 1 card. Succeed by exactly 4, discover 1 additional clue your location. Turns out, when I should actually go back to see what I said about this card in the past, but it was probably along the lines of, this is unreliable. There is no way to guarantee that I'm going to hit this, and it's going to just be a little bit of a wasted slot. Survey says that was a lie. You can actually just like play this card and just get insane value over the game. I once stated, and people were quick in the comments to say that you get value of this card when you just trigger it once. And the math heads, who I've grown to absolutely fucking loathe, that was like, you don't actually, but I still think you kind of, like, you don't, but I still think you kind of do. Because there's also that clue, because you're also like getting clues from all these as well. And like, that's just like juicy goodness. My biggest rant about this card is that since it's level 0, you basically end up doing the same thing all campaign. I think that that is a very fair statement regarding chemistry set. And then it also can potentially lead to things where you're like, well, I might as well get steady-handed because I'm playing chemistry set. But I actually think chemistry set, while yes, at its best is when you're looking at triggering it every turn, I think that chemistry set is at its second best when it's just like the first investigate you do each turn. I am going to give this probably a 3.5. I don't think it's 4 worthy. I honestly don't know what will be 4 worthy. But I do think that this card is a 3.5 for me. Like I said, I think it and Microscope have kind of just switched places. All right. Next up, we got Dr. Charles West III. Three cost, this MFer knows his purpose. He soaks for 1 and 2. You have 1 additional hand slot, which can only be used to hold a tool asset. As a reaction, after you successfully investigate by exactly 1 or 3, Dr. Charles West deals 1 damage to an enemy or location. It's perfect. You put him with chemistry set, and no matter what, you get value. Wait, what do you mean there isn't an enemy in my location? What do you mean this is actually really awkward to trigger? Wait, what do you mean that, like, already Alex Luxley sometimes can be a little bit awkward to play around, and this guy's even more awkward than Alex Luxley because it's kind of like Alex Luxley, but it doesn't give you an actual boost, it doesn't actually do anything, but I still need to make it harder to actually just ping the enemy? Like, I played this guy, and I remember, I triggered his ability and twice in a scenario, and I was like, wait a minute, is this guy actually good? And then he never fucking did it again. It's just a lot to make this card actually like do the thing that he's supposed to do. Chat gave it a 1.5. Actually debating if I'm there with you. He's going to be a 1.5 or a 2 for sure. So the only thing is I think he's better, sorry, he's worse than Absolution, and I can actually see myself playing Ofuda. Yeah, I'm going to give him a 1.5. I think that's a pretty good rating. After a year of playing with this MFer. Yep. Alright, I don't want to talk about him anymore. I don't want to look up his, I don't want to look at his stupid face. I love his art though. His art is actually really good. Alright, next up we got Mouse Mask. So Mouse Mask is a 1-cost asset, limit 1 mask per investigator, uses 2 offerings, replenish one of these offerings after you reveal a location or put a new location into play. As a lightning bolt, spend 1 offering. You get +2 brain or +2 book for this skill test. So I think this is the worst mask. And I think, in my opinion, Seekers can do so much better than this card. I'm going to give this card a 2.5. I'm just getting all this in there right now. I think this card is actually a mistake in a lot of Mystic decks. Sorry, a lot of Seeker decks. I would play it in Luke as a one-of, but even then, like, most of the time, he doesn't really need it. But I think that it's like, Luke would be the only place I could see myself running this. Like, I think the card is still playable. But I definitely think it is the worst mask. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it is the least played mask that I've seen. The replenish trigger is harder to hit than you think. Agreed. Agreed. And that's why, like, if I would play it in someone, it would be Luke, because he just triggers it, right? Like, it's just, Luke's ability says, also now says add a charge to your Mouse Mask, or an offering, rather. Okay. And also, like, I wish this card gave foot. Like, if this one was book foot, and, like, Rogue was book fist, I think, like, that would just be better. This brain book is kind of just, like, it eats itself alive, you know? It's like that Limp Bizkit song. When Fred Durst says, like, eat you alive or something like that. Don't know why that came into my head there, but it did, and I had to say it. Okay, we got our level 0 Ravenous Myconid. I hate this part of these videos where it's the damn stupid mother frickin' level 0 Research Seeker card. I'm honestly just going to give it the exact same thing I gave it last year, because this one doesn't matter, even though it's the most important one. You know? It doesn't actually matter, but it's the necessary one. So this is the one where you have to search your bonded cards for uncanny growth. That lets you investigate at 1 cost. For each point you succeed by, you add a growth on this, and then as an action, if it is 3 or more growth, you get to move them as resources, and recording your campaign log, you've classified a new species. One thing I like about this guy in comparison to the other ones is that you're getting clues, and it's going to ultimately pay itself back, which I think is really nice. Assuming you only add 1 growth on each. If you do it in 1, you're basically getting resource positive. I think that it's fine. For the research ones, I think it's actually pretty easy to translate. You get to advance the game while doing it, and then you get some resources back in the process. Yeah, it's slow, but not a lot to work to research it. What does everyone think is the easiest one to research? That's a great video idea. How hard is each research thing to research? I think Dream Diary is the one that I usually view to be the easiest to research, but it's a great question. All right, y'all ready to throw the book at them? Even though you do not actually throw the book? All right. 1 cost fight. Choose a tome asset you control. You get +X fist for this attack, where X is the asset's printed cost. If you succeed, you may either automatically evade the attacked enemy, or after the attack ends, you may resolve the action or lightning bolt ability on the chosen asset, or you actually can choose to do neither of those things, just so you know. So okay, so this is actually my biggest beef with this whole Robert Castaigne thing, is that people only started questioning it when there was a downside. I see you. I see you. I see you. All right, anyways. So when I succeed on these attacks, I may either automatically evade the attacked enemy, which is nice, or I can activate an action or lightning bolt ability, or, again, I can choose to do neither of those things. Which is kind of like, it's kind of neat. I think this is a nice level 0 card in a pinch, but I don't think it's going to last too long. 2.4 from chat. So I played this in like a level 0 Amanda deck when I brought that curse build with Daniel through Circle Undone. And I think that it's like a fine panic button. I wish that it could have like been... I wish like the asset was discarded. And then like the card could become stronger. Like I know that's a bit Survivor, but I'm okay with like the blending of lines if it also is specific to tomes. And I think that's kind of like the things... Like if it like maybe froze the enemy, or you could like trigger an action ability on the like discarded asset. I'm gonna give it a 2. I think 2 was a pretty good rating last year, and I think I'm gonna ride with that as well. All right. Next up. Control variable. 1 cost event. Fast. Play after an investigator reveals a curse token during a skill test of your location. Discover one clue your location. So I also brought this to that Amanda deck, and turns out it was much better than I thought. I'm going to give it a 3. I think I gave it a 2.5 last year. That sounds about right. I'm going to give it a 3. So what made it so good? Free clues. What made it very good? Card draw, right? So if you have those things... which Seekers generally like free clues, and card draw is, I don't know, it fucking falls out of the air as rain in the Seeker class. It's one of those things that kind of just like makes a perfect storm. I do think that ultimately you'll want to end up cutting these cards, but if they do make it into your Scenario 8 deck, it's not going to be a bad thing. Like, I think the cards will still function pretty well. Yeah, I think the card was better than I gave it credit for. I'm going to give it a 3 this year as opposed to a 2.5. Oh, no, those are 4s. 3.3 from chat. So we're very close. We're very similar to one another on that. It's a good card, though. I was wrong. All right. Testing Sprint is next up here. All right, Testing Sprint. 1 cost event, additional cost to play Testing Sprint, spend an action. Investigate, 1 at a time, investigate your location and each connecting location once each in ascending order of Shroud until you either fail to investigate or successfully investigate each eligible location. I don't know if I am just, like, the luckiest man alive, or if this card is as good as it is the 3 times I've played it. I have played this card in Circle Undone twice. You've only seen one of them. And I've played this in Dream Eaters. And all 3 times, it's gotten a lot of clues. It's incredibly swingy, determining on when you hit that auto fail or not. But I don't know. Honestly, I'm kind of at a loss for how to evaluate this card. Because I'll be honest with all you guys, give it a 2.6. Would you play this hemispheric map? Nice try. I wouldn't play hemispheric map. Because, like, every time... How many clues would you consider to be worth it? I hate math. I don't want to become a math head, but... Okay, so if one of the clues that if both of the clues that I got were from adjacent locations, 2. If one of the clues I got was from my location, 3. So I think the vibe answer to go with trace is 3. So I think my answer is 3. But I think the real answer is that it depends on deck makeup, what I'm committing to these tests, yada, yada, yada. But if we're just looking at it in the vacuum, I think I would want to get 3 from this. Because you're also saving on move actions, right? In theory, you throw some investigates in there, some deductions in there, get some extra clues. However, the thing that's making this hard for me is that I have played this card to incredible success and got on average 5 to 6 clues, I think, from this one card. And it practically won the scenario for us. Like, that's so much potential for this card. And, like, that's why I'm having a hard time, because, like, I've only played this card to great success. I didn't think about this with Amanda. Yeah, Amanda was the one that I most recently played it in. Man. What did I give it last year? Did I give it a 3? I gave it a 3. It's probably pretty accurate, right? I cut it pretty quick, though. That's the thing. This with Enraptured to Amanda? Yes. Weirdly worse at high player counts. I agree with that. I don't think that's... I think that's a very good observation about this card. I do think it gets worse with higher player counts. I think I'm going to give it a 3. I think 3 was a good rating. But I think it's like, this is a tech card. I don't think this is a card you put into your deck to play in a scenario and to play in a campaign. Generally, I think this card is at its best when you are using it as a tech card. Like, if I'm playing Witching Hour, I'm bringing this card in my game. Like, this is going to be the tech card I bring to take advantage of that scenario, and then I cut it in, like, the second or third scenario. Notably, though, I did play it in Wages of Sin, too. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 3. I think this, like... I don't want to, like, take a segue out of this video to watch my turn 1 with Amanda when I put, like, 10 curses in the bag. Like, yeah, it was nuts. I think it has high highs, but I think you have to build around it. And I think it's more of a tech card than it is just a generic card for my personal ranking. All right, Thorough Inquiry. 2 cost, Insight double. It's just a cost to play Thorough Inquiry, spend an action. Investigators your location draw a combined total of 5 cards. You decide how many cards each investigator draws. Thank you for the reminder text. I think this card's good. I'm going to give it a 3. Which is exactly what I gave it last year. This is unfair that this card got the best icons. Yeah. It's kind of nutty. And I think that's also what makes it so good, is that it does have absolutely disgusting icons. So if you don't need the cards, don't worry. You got a Perception or a Manual Dexterity, right? Like, if you do need those cards, don't worry. You get those cards. And having everyone draw, like, is really nice. I think that maybe this is not true, but this is what my gut from watching this card get played. I feel like this card is better at lower player counts. And the main reason for that is it just feels... Chat gave it a 3.8, by the way. it just feels more value when it's like divvied up between 2 players. But like, again, I think that's just like a weird feeling thing. I don't know if that actually is the truth. But yeah, card's good. I think that like another thing I learned. So 2 things that I learned from the Hemlock Vale time when the previous season was happening was that reactionary on being overreactionary that a card is too strong is bad, because you might be wrong, and it turns out we were wrong on a lot of things. I'm saying we as a community. I'm not pointing at anyone in particular. Or optionally, be reactionary negative also turns out you can be very wrong, because I know a lot of people were super down on the double cards, but it turns out most of the double cards were actually pretty playable. All right, next up we got Transmogrify. Evade. 1 cost event, by the way. Evade. You may use Book instead of Fist for this evasion attempt. If you succeed and the enemy is non-elite, attach Transmogrify to it. Attached enemy gains Massive. Cannot move. As a reaction, after you evade this enemy, discover 1 clue at its location. I'm going to get my thing in right now. I think that this is going to be our first 4 from the level 0 on the re-rank. I'm going to give this card a 4. So, I'm gonna go with what I was talking about earlier. So, I'm not gonna say it, but I'm not gonna say it. So, I'm not gonna say that I think that this card might actually be problematic. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that this card might actually be an effect that is ultimately bad for the game at level 0. I'm not gonna say that. What I am gonna say is I love, as a Seeker, having a way to just eliminate enemies and remove them from the game and not have to worry about them, and essentially just like delete an enemy from the encounter deck, delete an enemy from the table. I love, like, for example, in Innsmouth, just saying goodbye to a deep 1 bull, right? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that I think this card's pretty sick. I love being able to just like say goodbye to an enemy and just like leave it there. I love having, in my opinion, the strongest level 0 Seeker kill spell. So, like, yeah, that's like a little bit of an issue, but I'm not saying it's an issue. But I do think that this is like a little bit strong for a level 0 card. But at the same time, so the thing that I think that really stops it is that people look at this card, and I think even like with the design, when it was designed, it tells a great story. I agree with everything you were saying, Valentine, by the way. I love this card. I think it's a great card. I think it's very powerful. Once again, I'm not saying I think it's too powerful. But there is like this thing where like there's the whole bottom part of this card, right? Where the idea is like, oh, I can lock down an enemy and I can keep evading that enemy to get clues. But no, this card is actually at its best, in my opinion, when you just like use it and be like, see you later, idiot, I'm leaving, right? I think the card is very good. I think it's a very strong card. Okay, and then we have, unfortunately, probably voted for most likely to be forgotten about, and everyone never talks about this card. Is this card actually real? Yes, it is, and this is well funded. This is a skill. While you control a science or tool asset, well funded gains wild. While you control 3 or more science and or tool assets, well funded gains wild. Did I give it a 2.5 last year? Yeah. I'm going to give it a 2 this year because I'm pretty sure, if I remember what I said last year, right? I probably said something along the lines of, yeah, it does nothing, but it's still going to have like synergy in the science or tool decks, and like that's fine. The card's not good, but it's certainly not bad. And I think in actuality, when you actually just see this card for a year and you're like, wait a minute, no one played this card, it's kind of like, At a certain point, yes, focused skills are fine. They're kind of just beaten by unfocused skills that do a similar thing. I don't think the card's bad. Chad, you give it a 2. Again, Chad, I love it when you guys have a no Chad difference. That's so impressive considering I'm just throwing these polls out to a Twitch chat. But yeah, I think that overall this card is just kind of there, and I haven't seen anyone played it. I haven't seen anyone being like, oh, I can't wait to play Well Funded. And like, I understand it's level 0 skill, but there's a lot of level 0 skills that do more exciting things. Yeah. I think what Atomic is saying in chat is very accurate. I've tried to put this into decks, ended up cutting it in the build process. Yes. Next up, we got Bianca di Katz. All right. So, 2-cost asset, limit 1 per deck, uses 10 resources. An action, exhaust Bianca di Katz and parlay. Move X resources from Bianca to your resource pool. X cannot be more than 5. Test foot X. If you fail, remember you owe Bianca resources. Then search your bonded cards for the Bianca di Katz enemy and spawn your location. Remove this card from the game. And just for simplicity's sake, let's look up Bianca's enemy card. I'm not going to show it on the screen, but I'll read it for all of you. She's a 3/3/3 that deals 2 damage. If you owe, she's bearer only. If you owe Bianca X resources, spend X resources in action to parlay, add her to the victory display. When she leaves play, except by the above ability, shuffle her into your deck. I was not super high on Bianca last year, and I am also not super high on Bianca this year. I think that she is flavorfully a cool card, and I think she does that thing that ARKHAM does very well, where she is very nice at telling a story. But I think that ultimately, it's not super appealing. I don't see her like a reason to really play her. Just even like the resources, like I feel like, for example, Gregory Gry is better because he just like does it passively while you're also winning the game. And Gregory Gry's only downside is that he's an idiot, you know? And yes, I know, yeah, I agree as well. The theory was that the weakness is supposed to help parlay, but it turns out you don't need that. Doesn't she give 1 XP? I'm pretty sure she doesn't. She gives 0 XP. She has victory 0. So no, she does not give you any victory. I think I'm going to give her... I'm going to give her a 2. I think I'm going to give her a 2 on that one. I think I'm going to drop her from a 2.5 to a 2.0. She's just awkward. I can't recall anyone actually playing her. And I think she's just, like, not very good. Generally, I think you want your allies to do something. And, yeah, she gets you resources, but I think, like, there's just better ways to get resources. Yeah, and she's also limit 1 per deck. Like, you could do friends in low places, but if you're friends in low placing for Bianca, odds are you're probably a great person and having a great time. But odds are, too, I'd probably, like, be looking at that deck and going, ooh. All right. Next up, we got Blackmail File. 2 cost. As an action, choose a non-elite enemy at your location. Parlay, test Brain X, where X is the chosen enemy's health value. If you succeed, that enemy disengages from each investigator and gains aloof until the end of the round. So, I actually like the play pattern that Parlay brings. I think that there's a lot of cool flavor and function to the parlay archetype that overall leads to a better experience for ARKHAM, right? Like, with that said, I think unfortunately in the design, oh guys, you guys crucified this card. I mean, we crucified it last year too, but I love seeing you guys kill it again. It makes me happy. A 1.2. Holy. You guys almost got a 1. That's very impressive, chat. Holy hell. Yeah, so the thing is, no matter what, even if I look at all this, right? Because I ask a lot of questions of, like, who would want to play this card, right? And, like, chat, let's just, like, it'll be easier if we have this conversation as a team. Let me ask you guys, who do you think would play this card? And I'm going to wager some of these answers are going to be Mystics, or let's just say Safina, right? And, yeah, or Dexter, right? But wouldn't those investigators just want to play, like, an evade spell? Because, like, I understand that, again, the idea is that there's all this kind of, like, parlay stuff that comes with it, right? So, like, even in, like, the best use case for this card, I think, unfortunately, like, yeah, you don't have to spend charges, but you do have to play Blackmail File in your deck. And, like, the value is probably generally going to be higher than the evade value for most enemies. Devil's Advocate, it's an evade spell that doesn't take up an arcane slot. So that is a great... That's a great Devil's Advocate. I appreciate, because I already know... Last time I shit-talked this card, there were some people, and people in the comments who were defending it, and it made me want to go into a bit in the video here, right? It's an evade spell that doesn't take up an arcane slot. But let me ask you then in the two people that we saw, Safina and Dexter, couldn't we also argue that they play with their arcane slots differently, so they don't really care about that as much, right? I'm kind of just like, because I agree with you. It's an evade, not actually an evade, but it's an evade that, like, that doesn't take up a slot, but at the same time, like, I even think those investigators for it treat it differently. Yeah, I'm going to give it... I think I'm not going to go all the way to a 1. I think I'm going to put it into the 1 point. No, I'm going to put it in the 1. I can't see this leaving the binder. I do think that the vote of the Devil's Advocate there is a good point. Like, that is a positive on this card for sure. But I think overall, it do be a little bit poopy. Because, like, even you said, Atomic, you're playing Devil's Advocate, but you still gave it a 2. It is still pretty poopy. Dexter's probably the best use case because he can put it into play at 1 cost and fast and maybe get some okay use out of it. It's true. But I mean, I look at that and I'm just like, yeah, but couldn't I also just, like, isn't Miss Savrilla also 2? And doesn't it come with 5 charges? And isn't it also upgradable with Down the Rabbit Hole? Right? Like, that's the thing, that it's like one of those things that even then I'm just like, wait a minute. I'm like, that's a good point. And then I, like, think about it and I'm like, wait a minute, this card is kind of poopy. No, and I appreciate you the dialogue around it, because I do think that is kind of the issue with Blackmail File, right? Hey, also, doesn't this cop look really happy? Like, he looks like the kindest guy I've ever seen. I don't know why, but this doesn't look like blackmail to me. This looks like he's consoling George Barnaby because his wife was murdered by the cultists. But maybe that's just me because I'm a lore head. All right, let's move on to greener pastures. And let's talk about Fox Mask. 1 cost, limit 1 mask per investigator, uses 2 offerings, replenish 1 of these offerings after you move out of location with an enemy. Lightning Bolt, spend 1 offering, you get +2 book or +2 foot for this skill test, limit once per test. As I mentioned earlier, I think this is the strongest mask, but I do not think it is stronger. I don't think it's like a tier above Wolf Mask. I think they are both like the 2 strongest masks, but I think that Fox Mask is the strongest. And the reason for that, if I may go on a rant here, if I have your permission, chat, is that, oh, sorry, I could not replenish this much in my 4-player games? So, I'm sorry, how could you not replenish this in 4 players? It seems like 4 players would be the easiest to replenish this in. Here, I'm going to put these scores as I wait for that, because I'm actually very curious of what went wrong there. Chat gave it a 4. What do they give Wolf Mask? 4.1. I think that's a pretty legit rating. Yes, and I do think that it's a very fair point to wait while I'm waiting for Trace's response, is that, yeah, in solo and even 2-player, this mask is kind of hard to, like, get really going. Like, in 2-player, you could, but, like, I feel like you need to be 3 or 4. Yeah, like, because then you just, like, walk away. It didn't work well with how our group was playing at the time. Okay, so, yeah, it might have been an anomaly, might have just been, like, the play style for it. I get that, But, yeah, it's pretty easy to refill in 3 or 4 player. Don't be sorry. Because, like, there's so many people who are going to draw an enemy and you just, like, I go first. The other reason why I think Fox Mask is really relevant, because at this current moment, compared to Wolf Mask, rogues are using both of these stats offensively, whether that be in the form of evading for benefit or lockpicks. Sorry, not lockpicks or Thieves' Kit, right? So both of these stats are relevant to the rogues at all time, which I think is the big difference currently for Wolf Mask. Wolf Mask, you can use foot defensively pretty well, but there's not many great options. There are options in this set, Katana, that do allow us to use foot offensively, but rogues just have more with their foot. It's just the nature of the class. Additionally, unlike Guardians with Wolf Masks, rogues care about succeeding by more than, as well, basically as much as they can, right? So, while with a Wolf Mask, a lot of the times I've seen Guardians play it, and they are like, stop using it because their fist is already so high, they're already over the threshold they need to do. Rogues are instead like, no, I have my Lucky Cigarette Case 3, or I have my Breaking and Entering 2, or I have my yada yada yada, right? And what those do is it allows you to use Fox Mask for those even when you do not actually need the numbers to pass, but you're using them to just get more value. So that is ultimately why I think Fox Mask is the best mask, but I don't think it's like that much better than Wolf Mask, if that makes sense. But it's those little things that put it over the edge for me. I will say that Fox Mask, notably, is harder to replenish, but I also think Fox Mask is pretty easy to just passively replenish, which is nice. And I do love the thing here about Purified with the Kappas for Wolf Mask. Honestly, if someone is boosting their fist with Wolf Mask to go way over and then commits Purified, I might fall in love. I would love that interaction. That does seem like a pretty fun interaction. Anyway, what did I give this? 3.5? Good job, everybody. We did it. I think this one was very surprising, though. Oh, no. I remember I was one of them. So fun story, when this card was spoiled in like early or mid 2023. And everyone saw the 2024 copyright at the bottom and was like, we'll get the expansion this year. I was huffing the copium. I was like, no. It meant we were waiting a long time. Does move out of location with an enemy mean with the enemy? No. It does not. Alright, I'll pay you back. Fast. Play only during your turn. Choose another investigator at your location. Move all resources from that investigator's resource pool to your resource pool. At the end of the round, move all resources from your resource pool to that investigator's resource pool. So apparently Travis did some stuff with this and Bob in a deck that he brought to a patron game day where they all played Bob. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and watch that. I'll pay you back. I gave it a 2 last year. I'll probably give it a 2 again this year. Oh, chat. They hate this card. Chat, a 1.1. I mean, I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that's a crazy score to give it. The griefing possibilities is why this is a 2. I like the flavor of this card. I gave it an extra point for that. Well, now we know who the two votes were, and then we had 13 1 votes. So... I still don't think this card is... I know it does, like, nothing. But I feel like it does more than all 4 of these cards. Everybody just keeps playing it. Okay, what happens? Passing the money around. So the last person gets all the money, right? Because I imagine they resolve there at the end of the round the order they were played. So one person just gets all the money. I just need to quickly check. It was in that deck, right? Let me look at that. Bob sells Joey garbage. Yeah, Travis, they played 2 in this deck. You can see it. They're right there. This isn't Magic, though. The lead investigator gets all the money. Why would the lead investigator get all the money? I think, if anything, the lead investigator would choose the order they resolve in. Players get to decide. So then the lead investigator doesn't get all the money. The lead investigator chooses who gets all the money. I'll give this a 1.5. I think it's on par with these other ones. I don't think I'll give it a 2. Go there. All right. Next up, we got Bank Job. Two costs. This is just a cost to play Bank Job. Spend an action. Investigators at your location gain a total of 8 resources distributed as you wish. So, like the Thorough Inquiry, this card was pooed a lot more than Thorough Inquiry was, but I think in practice, after playing with this card for a year, seeing people play with it, there is a reason, as I'm pretty sure we said on this channel, of why you would play this card over Faustian Bargain, as opposed to people online being like, why would I ever play this card when I could just play Faustian Bargain, right? Turns out 8 resources split up is pretty good. I mean, it is only 6, but 6 positive if you give it all to yourself. But 8 resources divvied as you want is a really big get. 2 actions to do it is also worth it, turns out, when there is no quote-unquote downside. Yes, it also works with Fence. There's a lot of reasons why you would want to play these cards. I think that it turned out to be much better than people thought it was going to be. I do think... I'm going to just get the votes in. Oh my god. 3.5 when it's all said and done on Bank Job. Chad, you guys were very close to each other on that one. 3.4 to 3.5 this year. I think I'm going to also give it the same rating I gave it last year, which is a 3. I think the card's good. I think it's a good card. I think it's less ubiquitous than Faustian Bargain, so that's why it's a bit lower for me. Faustian Bargain would be higher. But I still think that there is reasons why I would run Bank Job over others in the decks that I'm building, and I think that these are pretty legit cards. I think they're good. All right, False Surrender. Parlay, 1 cost. Choose an enemy location and play a weapon ass from your hand, reducing its cost by 1. You may then take a fight action with that weapon against a chosen enemy, using foot instead of the skill indicated. So I know, yeah, people when this card was first coming out, I think people were also poo-pooing this one. Let's see what we all put on in this one. False Surrender. No, I mean you guys are pretty legit. I'm gonna give it a 3 as well. Oopsie, that's not. I think this card turned out to be pretty playable, and it turns out, who would have saw this coming? When this card was designed for the rogue class, a lot of rogues have high foot. Like, who could have seen that coming? Right? Like, it's 2 actions. It's like a reverse double, where you get 2 actions for 1 action. So, like, that's pretty alright. 1, 2, 3. Chat gave it a 2.4. Chat went down on it. I stayed the same. I don't disagree necessarily. Like, while I gave it a 3, I still think the card is... I've seen Bryn play it a lot. And just being able to, like, have ways to fast out weapons can be very good in a pinch. Like, you don't actually save money, which is, like, the awkward part. But I think that there's, like, slow building pieces to get the tactics and tricks, like, actually doing things. So, yeah. I'm going to sit with a 3. I still think the effect is still, like, very good. Notably as well, a lot of fun things you can do, like now with that new Remington as well. You need to have good punch to wall weapons if you don't draw this card, and good foot to want to use this card. Yeah. If only rogues, like, had both of those things in a lot of their fighters, right? Like, you know, like, it's almost like rogues are kind of, like, able to do both of these things, and maybe some of them also want to play, like, that Wolf Mask card we talked about earlier, right? I don't think the card's, like, great, and it's probably, like, a level 0 card that you want to look at cutting, but I think that this card was actually as a higher use case, and as I saw Bryn use it to good success a few times, I think it's better than a fine card to me. I think I like it more than all of the ones that I have down here in the 2.5. All right, Grift. Another card when Hemlock was coming out where people were saying, why would I play this card when Faustian Bargain exists? Well, it turns out when your Faustian Bargain also moves you 3 spaces, that's pretty good. I'm going to give this one a 3.5 this year. And apparently last year I gave it a 3.5. Yeah, so like that's the big thing that made this card really good, is that rogue skills are usually foot-based. They're usually pretty good, and if you turn those things also into economy, like that's also really good. I think there's a lot of neat things coming out that are going to make this work. Like I really want to try a Rita deck where I play that new Contemplative card to also just like go a little bit crazy with things. Yeah. I think it's a pretty legit economy card, and while I'm rating it higher than Bank Job, does that mean that I think it's stronger than Bank Job? Yes, I do think it is stronger than Bank Job, but I think, like most options for economy now, and also just generally most options for ARKHAM, you kind of have to choose the effect that is better for your deck, right? You could go the easy, just put in the staples that have always been staples, or you can attempt to explore your collection. Where's British Bulldog? Did I miss that card? I did. Get out of here. We missed British Bulldog. Give me a second. Yeah, your decks get better when I think you do. I did. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, let's get to British Bulldog, because we did miss 3 rogue cards. British Bulldog, Fake Credentials, and Scrimshaw Charm. So let's do that. Alright, British Bulldog. Now, give me a second as well to just get my card on the screen. Alright, British Bulldog. Uses 3 ammo. Spend 1 ammo, fight, takes up a hand slot, by the way. You may use foot instead of fist for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage. After you fail a skill test while parlaying with an enemy, as a reaction, put British Bulldog into play from your hand. I'll be real, I haven't seen anyone actually trigger that bottom ability, but I suppose it is nice to have. I think I'm going to give this a 3. I gave it a 3.5 last year. I think it did prove to be less impactful than I thought it was going to be, but I think 3 is still a very good place for British Bulldog. Why did it become less impactful? Because in the full collection, like, Mausers were already doing a pretty good job, and while yes, this was nice to have, I think ultimately the Mausers were still just like pretty alright for most combat rogues. I did trigger in a Carcosa scenario too. I imagine it's very easy to trigger in that scenario for sure. That makes tons of sense. But yeah, I think it's a good card. Check gave it a 3.7 down from a 4.7, and I gave it a 3 from a 3.5. So I think we all still think it's very nice. This gun changed Winifred forever. It's very nice for Winifred. Also good in Keimani. I think that it's a very impactful card, but I do think that I'm looking at upgrading it sooner rather than later, just because I think more foot boost forward is nicer. That's the thing that I think really, because it's shriveling. This is basically shriveling, and likewise, it's nicer to go from shriveling 3 from shriveling 0 ASAP. All right, we also have Fake Credentials. How strong is this card? 3 cost as an action, choose an enemy or location and exhaust Fake Credentials. Parlay test book 1. This test gets +1 difficulty for each suspicion on Fake Credentials. If you succeed, discover one clear location and place 1 resource on Fake Credentials as suspicion. If you fail, you must either discard Fake Credentials or the chosen enemy attacks you. Okay. I think this card's not great, right? I think I gave it a low rating last year, and I think I'm going to stay by that. I gave it a 2. I also think that this is probably still a 2. I don't think this card has notably gotten better or worse. I still just think, like, I think the upgraded version is fine, but I think ultimately, yeah, it's just, like, not very good. All right, let's get your score in. All right. .5. Helps on high shroud locations. You just don't use it all the time. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of paying 3 cost and a hand slot for an asset I'm not using all the time. I'd rather like try to use it all the time, you know? That's just my own thought. Also, we'll take a second here and I'm pretty sure I did say, so when I talked about the Robert Castaigne thing, and I said that if they rule against the grammatical reading of the sentence, I'll admit that I was wrong. And I was wrong. So they've ruled, unfortunately, that may either you can choose to not do either of them. And I guess I do understand, like I understand the sentiment behind how, like, for example, fake credentials does say must. So in game language, must and may are different. I agree and disagree with that statement. I do agree that they are different in game language, in that kind of thing. But I do think that in game language as well, we kind of lean too heavily on it, where ARKHAM, I think it's one of those things where, like, ARKHAM, I actually was curious. So I looked up, for example, Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering doesn't use may either on a card. So I feel like it's one of those things that I think, unfortunately, I agree with the sentiment that ARKHAM has its own game language. I do think that the design team, unfortunately, uses real language too much for that to actually be a thing. Because grammatically, may either and must either are actually like the same thing, right? But because there's no consistency, we're in this situation where it's different, right? However, I still have the bone to pick that it's a little bit of a problem that the community only started to ask about it when there was a card with a downside. And I do think that the designers, I think that this ruling, unfortunately, is a whoopsie after the case, right? But there's not much to do about it now. I will say that my original sentiment that may either, you only do one of the two because that's how the words work, I still stand by what I said. And I still think it's crazy. Not in terms of power level. I have no problem with Robert Castaigne with the power level. But you can actually see it here with fake credentials. This is why it's a good time to talk about it. So I respect the sentiment, but I'm going to stand by. I think you're illiterate in the kindest way possible, because people thought I was being a bit too real or like too much of a jerk ass. And I am. I'm a little bit of a jerk sometimes, and I want to be, but I do think that this was the worst way this could have gone, in my opinion. But I think that this goes deeper than just that one card. But now, anytime Henry Wan shows up, I'm going to say, just so you know, you don't have to choose either. You can choose to not draw a card or gain a resource. Which I just think is a little bit fucked up. All right. We then have Scrimshaw Charm as the last of the cards I forgot. I think this card's an issue. I think this card has a horrible play pattern. I think it has a horrible play pattern. 1 cost, takes up the accessory slot. As an action, add 1 to 3 Chaos tokens to the Chaos bag and exhaust Scrimshaw Charm. Gain 1 resource for each token added. Gain 1 additional resource. Oh, sorry, by the way, before I move on from the Robert Castaigne thing, if you don't leave a comment about it, I'm not interested in engaging further. It's done as far as I'm concerned. Basically, I'm just saying that I was wrong, and I disagree with the logic behind it, but I'm not here to argue. And if you try to argue, I'm not reading it. So go for it, but I am not going to even think about that conversation anymore beyond this day. So, this card is an issue. It is so good at generating money, but it's also so good at generating curse tokens. And if you are not able to mitigate the curse tokens, you are going to have a very bad time. Chat gave it a 3.2. I think I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think it's a very impactful economy card. Just having like a emergency cash plus on demand makes it so that you don't really feel the curse tokens, but your teammates certainly do, which is kind of where this card gets really sticky, right? Feels very rogue to me. Yeah, it's also when I realized that I'm glad that Travis doesn't play more rogue, because I think Travis embodies the rogue class very well, where he's just like, I have a scrimshot charm, I'm gonna use it every turn, and you guys can deal with the curse tokens. As seen by Travis doing this when Bryn and I were doing the Dog Dreamers run. It's also sad when you can't put more curse tokens on the bag. No, you just have your opponent, your teammates, not opponents. Your teammates draw all the curse tokens, and before your turn, you just always go last, then you fill it up through their turns again, and it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yeah. I think it's a good economy card. I don't think it's one of the best ones. I think like Grift has a higher ceiling, but Scrimshaw has an incredibly low floor. It's just like, you're in it to win it, and you're going to get resources, and it's going to be great. Okay, so now we got to go to Stir the Pot 0. We are all caught up, and I don't think I missed any other ones, so hopefully not. But let's talk about Stir the Pot 0, and we do not need to worry about Stir the Pot 5 right now. It can't hurt you. It's not here in this video. 3-cost event, Parlay. Choose an enemy or location and test book X, where X is the chosen enemy's combined damage and horror values. If you succeed, deal 2 damage to each enemy or location. If you succeed by 2 or more, after this effect resolves, you may disengage from each enemy and move to a connecting location. So this card is essentially Storm of Spirits, which I would give a 3. And this card is Storm of Spirits, as I said, so I'm going to give it a 3. Yeah, like it has its test modifies, which is like not, I mean, it is kind of Mystic, but it's a little bit more roguey from what we've seen. It deals 2 damage to each enemy. If you succeed by 2 or more, you get an effect, which Rogue cares about. It uses Book, which Rogues are usually pretty good at getting. It's one of those things that you're not going to see it. Like, it's like with Storm of Spirits, you kind of just see it just generally in Mystic decks, right? But with this one, for example, I can't imagine like Tony Morgan ever playing this card. Like, I could imagine like Agnes Baker playing Storm of Spirits, but that's mostly just because of the brain thing, right? So what's nice for this though is to run as like a 1 of, or depending on player count, 2 of, as like the Clover Seeker, and it's kind of like a fine thing to get, just like to deal some damage and help the rogue out in a pinch. Like, dealing 2 damage to each enemy is really nice, and there's also no downside. Yeah. Chat gave it a 3.6 from 3.5. I stayed at 3. I think it's a good card. I think it's a very nice card. Just don't upgrade it. Alright, we then got a Vamp, which I'm going to tell you right now, I don't even know what I gave it last year, a 2.5. It's definitely going down. This card actually... what's the opposite of impressed? It's not depressed. What is the opposite of impress? Okay, that's a very that's a very confusing thing. It just said impress. And I got really confused. So I Googled, what is the opposite of impress? And it said impress. And I was like, what? But it is. It's disappoint. Yeah. So yeah. This card depressed me. I was so unimpressed that I became depressed when this card was resolved. And like, I didn't expect this card to be good. As you can see by my rating last year, where I gave it a 2.5. But I think I'm gonna give it... I mean, I think it's playable, so I'll give it a 2. But I don't think it's, like, particularly good. Playable, so I'm going to put it on the bottom side of that. You know, like, it's like, closer to bad playable than it is good playable. Let's just not talk about under and overwhelm. Sounds like, you know, honestly, your start of that sentence just made me think, like, that sounded so much like someone talking about the ARKHAM rules. Like, let's not talk about the word evade in ARKHAM terminology. Same kind of vibe there. So yeah, the thing about Vamp, and even the upgraded version of Vamp, is that it doesn't actually matter. His card is so hyper-focused on parlay decks. It's so hyper-focused on that bad part of parlay decks where we had Fine Clothes only in that one set, so you kind of need it. But the numbers here are still kind of balanced around it. I think it's a little bit bad. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We have our 2 skills in the Rogue class in the form of Diabolical Luck and the next one when we get to it. But right now we're talking about Diabolical Luck, so we're going to stop there. This is commits for a while. When you reveal a curse token during a skill test you're performing, you may commit Diabolical Luck to that skill test from your hand. If you do, Diabolical Luck gains Wild, Wild, Wild. So, I like this card quite a bit. I actually think it's pretty playable. I'm just debating between 2.5 and 3. I gave it a 3 last year. Well, it hasn't gotten worse for me. If anything, it's gotten better, so I'm going to believe the past Justin and give that a 3.0. I think the card is, it's a really nice curse tech. So one thing that I try to always stress when I'm talking about curse decks with people, with the community, and like in our videos, the most important thing that you, okay, so for a blessed deck, let's start there. The most important thing for a blessed deck is 3.5, nice job, chat, is you need a payoff for your blessed tokens, and you need to be able to control when you pull your blessed tokens. For the opposite, for curse, is that you need to have ways to mitigate curse tokens. And those are like the 2 most important things I like to stress about those 2 decks to ensure that you're able to succeed in those decks. And Diabolical Luck is a very good level 0 option for that. You might cut it, but that was this 3.0 just like generally, which was just like these cards might get cut as you level up your deck, but like they're still they're still all playable in like what they do. So yeah, Diabolical Luck, I think it does the job. It does the job well. And like I said, you might cut it, but just having a Promise of Power, like it's only a +2, right? But having like a reverse Promise of Power to help mitigate curse tokens is very comfortable for those first few scenarios before your curse deck really gets up and running, before you get False Covenant as a rogue, for example. So yeah, I think it's a very nice and very important card for curse decks. Next up, we got Light-Footed, which I'll be honest, okay, I'm going to read the card and then I'll be honest. Commits for a foot. If the skill test is successful during an evasion attempt, you may automatically evade another enemy or location. I think that this card is good. It reads good, but I have not played it, and I have not seen anybody play it. So because of that, I'm going to assume it's not as good as it looks. I'm going to put it in the 2.5. I think just like effects like this are better with a small collection, and if you're not playing like a challenge run, it's going to be a little bit not great. Like, I don't know. Like, the cards... I don't know why I gave this a 3 looking back, right? Like, I think Survival Instinct is a fine card, but rogues don't really care as much about this, which is strange compared to survivors. But there actually, like, is a difference. Yeah, I'm going to give it 2.5. Like, I think the card is still very playable, and I could even see it lasting in a lot of... No, you don't need to be engaged. So it does get better at higher player counts. Chat went up on this card. Oh, man. I don't know what I'm missing. But like I said, I just haven't seen this card played in a year. And I'm going to take that as a sign that it's not as good as I think, because I've played or seen played every other 3 last year that we've talked about, but I've not seen this card get played. But I still think it's good. It's fine. It does have good traits. That's a very good point as well. All right, on to Mystic time. And we're going to talk about the level 0 Rod of Carnimagos. All right, we need to address the animal in the room. That is this card. Exploit versus no exploit. So the exploit, I'm gonna acknowledge the exploit for my own. For people rating at home, choose as you want, right? I'm gonna acknowledge the exploit, but I'm not going to, and even again, the exploit's not. I don't really view it as an exploit. For my personal thing, I view it as just like game sequencing, right? And again, the issue with the language of ARKHAM, but we're not going to get into that here. And again, I don't want to talk about it in the comments, but you feel free to talk about it, but I'm not going to engage beyond this. I think that overall it's fine, but it doesn't sway me too much for the power level of this card. I view the power level of this card... So I think for me personally, I think that... Chat gave it a 4.3. I think that... it's already so easy to reveal the tokens you want to reveal, right? I think that this card works best for legitimately the curse synergy, because that is like the true fantasy. But for everything else of like triggering Sixth Sense, yada yada yada, that people want to talk about how this card is so good with, I think there's a card in this set that already makes that like very possible for you to do. So that's why I view that as like a little bit less of an issue outside of the curse stuff. With all that said, I like this card as enemy management. I think it's incredible enemy management. I think obviously you need curse tokens to be able to do the enemy management, but I do think that this card does a really good job of managing enemies. I think it does a better job than I thought it was going to, so I'm going to give this a 4. No, I'm going to give this one a 3.5 still. I think the upgraded version is better, but because it's a random rot, you don't have as much control. But I think the upgraded rot is a lot, like the upgraded rod is a lot nicer because you can choose the rot that you want. So I still think the effect is good because like pretty much every rot gets you what you want to get, except for like the economy one. But otherwise, all the rots do something to an enemy to manage them in some way. And that being lightning is very good, but you're going to want to upgrade this right away. And I think the upgraded rot, we'll see when I do this, when I record the next video, because I don't know what it's going to live with. But that is probably going to be a higher, a much higher score than this one. Still love the card, though. I think the design is awesome. All right. Wicked Athame. Is this card actually wicked? Or is it just fine? So, Wicked Athame. 2 cost, takes up the hand slot. As an action, add 1 to 3 curse tokens to the Chaos Bag. Fight. You get +2 physical attack for each curse token added as part of this action's cost. If this action attack defeats an enemy, replenish 1 charge or offering on an asset you control. I'm going to be real with all of you guys. All you people. I fell for this card. Again. Again! Every cycle, I'm like, here is the Mystic card that is going to make combat easier for 2-handed Mystics. And every time, it proves to just be okay. I'm going to give it a 2.5. It's fine, but the problem is, so here's the thing that came with this card, right? This helped really good for that one test against the rats, or the ghoul that you needed to deal that, like the ravenous ghoul that you needed to deal that extra damage to. However, what it also means is that then there's the risk in the future of drawing the curse token for that spell shot you were using, so you're basically risking future charges. Wow, we both fell on this one, chat. We both actually followed a similar sort of line. It's not bad. It's not good, but it's fine. And it's kind of just... Sorry, my throat's starting to hurt. We are 2 hours, though. We're almost done. We're close to the end. We're getting there. But I do think that the card ended up being messier than I thought it was. And now I'm like, even in this next set, I'm like, ooh, Breath of the Sleeper or Breath of the Dreamer. And then like, yeah, I mean, Sword Cane 2 is going to be pretty good, but all of them I'm like, no, you won't trick me again, motherfucker. It's always going to be like this. All right. Speak to the Dead. One cost asset, uses 6 offerings, take up the arcane slot. As an action, spend any number of offerings, parlay. Choose a spell or ritual event in your discard pile and reveal tokens of the chaos bag equal to the number of offerings spent. If at least one skull or curse token is revealed, to return the chosen event to your hand. So it's so unreliable, right? It's nice with Olive. You could probably trigger it like just on like 1 with Olive. But it still ends up being so reliable. So I feel like effects like this, they should be fast. You know, like playing it initially. And I also just think, unfortunately, there's better ways to get spell or events back. There's some high scores on this one. Yeah, that's pretty standard. I think that's an expected result from me. That one. Chat gave it a 2. I gave it a 3 last year? That's crazy. The Blood of Thoth of the previous set? Oh, no. I think that this is no Blood of Thoth. Blood of Thoth is bad. I think that this is playable. You need to build around it a bit, but a lot of like... So the thing that's nice is that a lot of decks that care about this kind of have... that like care about spell events kind of have token manipulation in there. So I feel like it's a natural fit. So I've actually also seen this card played, and it was okay. I think when I gave it a 3, I'm going to give it a 2.5. I think the card is fine. But you're not putting it in your deck unless you are looking at like cheating the token, or like, not cheating, but like skewing the odds heavily in your favor. Yeah. So this is the kind of parlay stuff that I would like to see to go with what you're saying over metal. This is kind of the parlay thing that I think is interesting because it's flavorfully parlay while also not necessarily like feeling like they just put parlay on the card to make it fit with Alessandra because Alessandra is here, you know? So I like that for Speak to the Dead because you're speaking to the dead. It's a parlay. I think that's fun and flavorful and kind of cool. All right. Next up, we got Cat Mask. 1 cost, limit 1 mask per investigator, uses 2 offerings, replenish 2 of these offerings after Doom is placed on a card with no Doom. As a lightning bolt, spend 1 offering, you get +2 brain or +2 fists for the skill test, limit once per test. Yeah, this is the Rust Mask, baby. He's mad that I'm in here. He's like, I want to look at you. So, I think this one's like right in the middle of all the masks we've seen so far. I think it's fine. I think it's, funnily enough, better than Spirit of Thame at the job that I thought Spirit of Thame was going to be good for. Which is just like getting your fist high for 1 test. Which is actually kind of funny that it worked out that way. But I think it's playable. I put it in a lot of my Mystics as a 1-of. And I don't want to spoil Mystic Week, but very good. Well, my most recent showing that I've seen of this card turned out to be very impressive. Delete. And then we got 1, 2, 1, 5, 3.5 from chat. I don't disagree with that. I think that's a pretty fair rating. Ooh, I gave it a 4 my first time through. I mean, I was high on the masks. I think I was like high on the masks just generally. I think I said back then that I predicted this was going to be like the 2nd or 3rd best mask. But 4 is very high. And see, folks, that's why I love to do this. I think it's very fun to look to see how things have changed in a year. And I wasn't planning on revisiting these again, but I might. They're fun content for me to make, so I might like revisit Edge of the Earth or Scarlet Keys in the near future. I think it could be fun. Okay. What's up next? Oh yeah, Antediluvian Hymn. Two cost. As additional cost to play Antediluvian Hymn, spend an action. It's a double, baby! Reveal the top 5 cards of the encounter deck. For each card revealed, you may add 1 curse stone to the cast bag and place that card on the bottom of the encounter deck. Return the rest to the top in any order. So, if you think, let's go back earlier in this video. Remember how I said you should keep in mind when I rate things, how I don't think the encounter deck is that scary? Can you imagine what I think of this card? Would you imagine how much I want to spend 2 actions, right? To look at the top 5 cards? Like, it's nice to place them, like, you know, in any order. It is nice to stack them. But I just don't think that is ultimately worth, 2 actions and 2 resources. However, I have good news. I have good news for Antediluvian Hymn. I think I'm going to give it a 1.5 this year. And the main reason for that is after looking at these cards for a year, I have seen this card played by Travis. And it wasn't awful, but I still can't imagine myself ever playing it. And while I ultimately don't know if it was really worth it, I can now see it leaving the binder, right? I think it's still bad, but I can actually see it leaving the binder in some cases. Yeah. And I also just think Antediluvian Hymn, I was mean to it last year. You know, 2025, a year of being nice, right? When do we get a Gator who actually an extra to play double cards? Hopefully never. I think that would be, unless they make more double cards, but double cards seem kind of finished. It doesn't seem like a mechanic that needs to be expanded on, in my humble opinion. All right. We don't need to go to this page. We can go to the more exciting page with Drain Essence. So this was one of the cards that was included in my cards I was wrong about. Madam Whitney, welcome to the goddamn table. It's a pleasure to have you. Drain Essence, 2-cost event, parlay. Choose an enemy at your location and test Brain X for X of the chosen enemy's fight value. If you succeed, move 1 damage from your investigator to the chosen enemy. Up to 2 damage instead if the chosen enemy is not elite. Yeah, I agree with Austin on Avocado. I would rather see an investigator that gets value out of using more than 1 action on something. I think that would be more open for that kind of thing. So I still think this card is good, but I'm going to give it a 3. I think I gave it a 4 last year. Yeah. But I think I'm going to drop it down to a 3. I still think the card is very good, but I think I was just like a little bit too positive on the damn thing. But I think that it's going to be still a mainstay in a lot of Mystic decks, but I feel like you're going to eventually end up cutting it or finding better ways to heal your damage. But I still think the card is pretty good. And Chat gave it a 3.7. So Chat went down a little bit, but not as much as I did. Oh, I'm having such fun. I'm having such fun. Well, we have 1 Mystic card left, and that is Accursed. I don't think I played this card, and I also don't think I saw this card get played. But I don't think it's better than Light-Footed. When you commit a Curse to a skill test, add up to 3 curse tokens to the Chaos Bag. During the skill test, treat the modifier of each curse token revealed as 0. Alright, chat. I want to see if you guys can answer the question of why this card isn't played. And why this card is bad. Or on the bad side. Because I'm curious. I'm curious if my sentiment holds true, or if I'm, like, if it's like, no, like a public thing that we all know, like it's like shared knowledge, or if, all right, no one's, I mean, I'm 2.3. All right. So I think what all of you guys have said is true, but Adam Frazier is, I think, the one that is most in line with what I'm thinking, which is why on earth would I add 3 curse tokens to do nothing when I could add curse tokens to get resources, draw cards, do all these things? There's so many ways to add curse tokens that are better. And, like, yes, there is this part of this card where you want to mitigate curse tokens, but that's not worth it. That's not worth it. Atomic Z coming in there with the steel chair at the end. Curse tokens are a cost you pay to get a benefit, except here. Exactly that. And I think that's why no one's played this card, because curse tokens are the downside for positive effects. And this card is Curse Addition with Curse Mitigation, and it's not really it. I'm going to give this card a 2. Yeah, it's fine. It's not bad, but it's on the bad side of fine. All right. We're in the home stretch. We have these last few cards here, and we're going to go to Survivor with Pitchfork. Three-cost asset takes up 2 hand slots. Fight is an action. You get +1 fist and deal +2 damage for this attack. If the attack is successful, lose control of Pitchfork and attach it to your location. Your location gains action. Take control of Pitchfork. Any investigator at Pitchfork's location may trigger this ability. How's it going, Time Roller? Sorry, the farmer came out of me in that one. The good old Albertan farmer. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's still a good weapon. I think people don't play it because they're... It demands something different than just a normal weapon, but it does still deal 3 damage, and you will upgrade out of it pretty quick, but I still think that it is a good level 0 weapon. I'm going to give it a 3. Down from a 3.5, you say? Yeah, that's about what I expected from the chat vote. 2.8. Yep. Pretty reasonable. 3 damage is really... like, so this is like very much like the Survivor thing, where you can tell just like, at least for this this last cycle, not Drowned City as much, but like with Sledgehammer and then this, just the 2 actions deals 3 damage in Survivor. But you only need to take the test once. I think it's a good design space and these to be, especially for 2-handeds. All right, next up we got Matchbox. This card proved to be pretty good over the last year. I think this was a really nice card. 1-cost asset uses 3 supplies. If Matchbox has no supplies, discard it. Lightning Bolt during any investigator's turn, exhaust Matchbox and spend 1 supply. Your location gets -1 shroud until the end of this turn. So I think this card was good, but I think ultimately this card had a problem that I found pretty similar to Wolf Mask, where this card was pitched with the fantasy that anyone can use this card, right? Like, anyone can do the thing, anyone can investigate. But what ends up happening most of the time is that the Seeker would lower the thing for their location and then be like, during their turn, and be like, I get like +1, right? It gets, and ultimately what I'm saying on that is that I think that that wasn't worth the action you put into it most of the time. You know? I see this is a tested 0 card. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. It definitely is good in tested 0. You guys went from a 4.8 to a 3.7 for that one, by the way, chat. I'm going to go to a 3.5. I'm down a little bit. I still think the card is very good, and I think it is playable outside of tested 0, but it still is very good at what it does. It can make things easier for people. But yeah, I think it's a fine card. Matchbox supports Keyring 3, Shadowlight, etc. That its use. If you're not playing those, then it's not great. I would agree that overall that's the best place for the deck, but like, I think with scavenging, it's still good. Like if you're not doing those, but you're just scavenging items, right? Especially if you have the upgraded scavenging that makes them fast. Because I think even in those decks where you're supporting the tested 0, I think there's like better ways to do about it recently. It's just like, I think that Matchbox is good, but I have a hard time playing it. You know, like just like that action to play that asset doesn't really like move the needle for me. But I agree. It's best in those decks, and it falls off quite a bit if you're not playing there. You need to be taking advantage of it. I like it from the flex side. Yeah, Travis played it in the Hank Sampson deck, but I don't know if that was because he wanted to play it or if he had to play it because he needed to have 35 cards in his deck. But yeah. All right. Pelt Shipment. While Pelt Shipment is in your hand, your maximum hand size is reduced by 3. As a reaction, when the game ends or you resign, if Pelt Shipment is in your hand, reduce the experience cost of the next new card you purchase before the next scenario by 1. Huh. It's fine. I'm going to give it a 2.5. Yeah, it's just like not worth it. That's kind of the thing, right? I think that overall the dance is not necessary. I like the flavor of it. I like the idea in Survivor to whoa, Chad hates this card. 1.9. All right, Chad, I need to know. I need some... I'm in the privileged position where when I see something like that, I can ask why. The people who gave it 1s, I'm curious as to why. Can't justify the deck slot. Again, survivors don't need this. I don't know, guys. I think your 1s are cooked. I don't trust your rating scale for that. If that's a 1 for you, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I'm so sorry. Those aren't reasons. I don't think. I'm gonna move on though. But I don't buy it. I don't think that's a 1. I don't think that's a 1. I don't think the card's good. I gave it a 2.5. Right? I think the card's fine. But a 1 is. I don't trust your other 1s. Yeah, 1 is like I would never consider. Yeah. Give it a 2? Yeah, 2's fine. I think 2's fine. But the 1s, yeah. I think I get it too. You can't put it into play, right? Why an asset? Why not? It could have been anything, right? They chose an asset because it's an item in a supply. Allows you to scavenge it back easier, right? I think the item thing is doing a lot of lifting for that. Like, I know there's items that are events, right? It's just one of the 3 cards, and they just decided that asset was the best for it. Yeah. I mean, like, I've seen this card do good things. Like, again, in that same Travis deck for Hank. Well, that Hank deck for Travis would be the more grammatically way to say that. It did good work there. He got a bunch of XP, which was helpful for limited collection. So like that's why like I can't see the 1s. Like I understand a 2 because it is like on the lower side, but I think the card does its job. So sorry, I just had my faith shake. My faith shook. All right, Sparrow Mask. All right, our last level 0 mask. Limit 1 mask per investigator, uses 2 offerings. Replenish one of these offerings after you take 1 or more damage and or horror. As a lightning bolt, spend 1 offering. You get +2 brain or +2 foot for this skill test. All right, raise your hand if you're like me. And every time you've seen someone play Sparrow Mask, they end up like never refilling it because they pass all their tests. And then like they just like never take damage or horror. So I guess then my question for that is Sparrow Mask better? And is Sparrow Mask only worth it if you are actively triggering the refresh yourself, right? So is it one of those things where Sparrow Mask is not so much about a defensive card, but it's actually kind of offensive? Check gave it a 3.9. We have Hank and Circle. Yeah, well, the thing, Hank falls into that thing, right? Like where Hank is using, he is force triggering it, right? So like that's the question I'm asking myself and just into the void, because this is how you get better at card evaluation. You challenge your own beliefs of this, because when we first read Sparrow cards, we're like, oh, this is a great defensive card, right? But is this card like, do you only want to be playing this card if you are forcing the trigger to happen? Because like Hank, Agnes, like I think these are good users of it. Kelvin, right? Kelvin can use it very nice and can have that defensive. But like, is it a wasted card slot if I'm putting it in my deck and I'm not forcing the trigger on it? And yeah, Daniela. Yes, that's another great example, right? So that's where I'm kind of stuck, where I'm deciding between 3.5 and 3. So like, if you're not triggering it yourself, the best use case for Sparrow Mask is you use it on a Rotting Remains, but you take 1 horror. So you take less horror, but you're still taking some horror, or opposite with like a Grasping Hand style effect. And how much does that actually happen for it to be notable? Does requiring that you trigger yourself actually lower its value? That's interesting. Can you expand on that, please? Because that's an interesting question. Because I think that is potentially true unless you're able to actively use these tests offensively, like in Agnes, right? Huh. Because if you're triggering it yourself, but you're relying on the Mythos deck to activate, then are you actually using the card to its full potential? Interesting. I am going to give this a 3. I think that this has made me think that this card is... I think it's still a good mask, and I think it's like number 3. But I think it's like a tier below Fox Mask and Wolf Mask for me. And I agree, like its floor of just like a double brain or double foot and then Crypt Chill fodder, like that's fine. But I'm not like... I'd rather, for example, pass that card... pass that test and then like draw cards while also still maybe getting it than just play this. And I think a 3 is a good place for that. So yeah. Thank you, Sparrow Mask. That was a very fun evaluation I just was able to go through in my head. But I think ultimately it's just that I think in Agnes it gets better, but I think that is actually more fine than it is like great in most decks. That's my thought. This card was very surprising. But let's see if I gave it a good rating. Because I think that this card is actually the best double card. I gave it a 3. I was hoping past Justin would have been spicier and gave it a 3.5. So, I should read the card. 3-cost event, trick double, additional cost to play elaborate distraction, spend an action. Playing elaborate distraction does not provoke attacks of opportunity. For each enemy at your location, and at each connecting location, automatically evade that enemy if it is non-elite. Deal 1 damage to that enemy. This is a very good effect. I think that this card is going to be played, it's going to be a nice card as well, for Memories of Another, or the skill, Memories of Another Life, or whatever it was from, Drowned City. I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think it's a good card. $3.8 from chat. I'm not disagreeing. I think that's a great... I think that's a really good place for it. Hell yeah. So why is this card so good? It does a lot. It does a lot, right? Like, say, for example, I think I talked about this when I first spoiled it. Well, when I first saw it spoiled. Use it to kill an acolyte on an adjacent location, and, like, that's probably worth it in a lot of ways, right? You kill 2 acolytes, or you, like, kill an acolyte on your location and kill an acolyte on another location. That's, like, super worth it. I think that it's just like a fine floor, and the ceiling can get really high. I think it is campaign dependent, but I think good cards are often campaign dependent, and because they really shine in those campaigns. All right, push to the limit. So notably, this was one that I rated very high last year. And a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, I think I distinctly remember Holy Helicopter being like, why are you rating this card so high? And I think I rated it a little bit too high, but not too high. 2-cost event, choose a weapon or tool asset in your discard pile, resolve an action ability on that asset ignoring all cost, including its action cost. After this effect resolves, shuffle the chosen asset into your deck. Playing this card does not provoke attacks of opportunity. So, chat, I need a reminder. This one does work with Sledgehammer. The Sledgehammer, upgraded Sledgehammer. It does. But hand-eye coordination does not. Because that one says you ignore action cost, not all costs. Yes. Chat gave it a 3. I gave it a 4.5 last year. And call me crazy, chat. I'm still high on this card. I'm going to give it a 4. You can disagree. But I think the effect on this card is still so powerful. That I think it's just still a very, very powerful card. I think what a lot of people, excuse me, when a lot of people see this card, they think of the ceiling of Sledgehammer. But I play this card on just basic tools or weapons to shuffle them back into my deck after discarding them. And I think this card is going to see a nice boost with the suite of cards that came up in Drowned City to help fill out the active desperation cycle, right? Yeah, Keyring, like Fingerprint Kit. I think I had like a Wilson Richards deck, which worked really well with this card. I think that this card is a very nice card. I'm going to give it a 4. I think 4.5, as we can see now, was a little bit high, but I do still think it was a banger-ass card. And I've never been disappointed when I've resolved it. And I've done the highs of the Sledgehammers and the lows of the old Keyring, and it's always been really good. Obviously in Survivor, to go with what Overmeddled is saying right now, they have recursion to get some of those things back, but at the same time, additional recursion, or to recur things that you cannot use other things on, or to take advantage of actions that you can't do by just recurring and then playing it again. It'll take too long. These are really nice effects for that. Oh boy! Oh boy! We get to end with some 2 stinkers before we go to an absolute banger in the Survivor class. Stall for time. 1 cost event. Parlay! Choose an enemy. I mean, maybe this isn't as much of a stinker. I don't know. I don't enjoy it. Parlay. Choose an enemy or location. Test brain X, where X is the chosen enemy's fight or evade value, whichever is lower. If you succeed, exhaust the chosen enemy, but do not disengage from it. If it is not elite, it does not ready during the next upkeep. If you fail, return stall for time to your hand. I mean, it is an evade spell. It does freeze them. Right? And those are all fine. Yeah, maybe this isn't much of a stinker. Maybe it was just a reaction to this. I'm going to give it a 2.5. It's fine. I think it's a fine card. Even what Dice Gods is saying, easy brain check to freeze a guy, I still have not seen this card played. Like, I can't think of a time where someone played this card. Because, yeah, it's an easy brain check to freeze a guy, but, like... It's still 1.8 from chat. Ay caramba. It's fine. I agree, it's fine. But I also, like, I don't play it, and I haven't seen anyone, like, really play it. I forgot this card existed, honestly. I do, too, quite often. But I think the issue is just that I'm going to forget about it, like, right away again. It's just going to, like, dissipate out my brain as soon as I get to the next thing. Because event cards, I think, generally are more impactful than this, right? And this is most likely going to be a 2, right? It's probably going to be a 2, maybe a 3. I think the other thing, too, is just that, like, with freeze effects, they generally are better on assets like Disguise. And the reason for that is that you get, like, multiple uses out of them, even though you're paying more. You're also using your foot, Survivor, and Brain. Yeah, I think 2.5 is still fine. It's hard for this one because, like I said, I haven't seen it played or played it. But the effect's not bad. It's fine. I mean, unironically, I think Patrice was a great person for this art, not because she has the violin, but because I actually think this is a pretty fine card for a level 0 Patrice deck, right? She has good brain. It's great if there's no enemy because you can just use it for your violin. It's not bad. Yeah. Oh boy. So last time we talked about this card, I tried to shift my perspective on it, which was... I don't even remember. It was about turning it into a draw as opposed to a heal, I think. Let's read it. 0 cost. This is the cost to play wrong place, right time, spend an action. Move up to 5 damage and or horror from investigators. From your investigator to assets controlled by investigators at your location. For each asset defeated by this effect, draw 1 card. Remove wrong place, right time from the game. Welcome to the goddamn table. 2? It has good icons. I'm gonna give it a 2 again. I think 2 is the right place for that card. I have a deck that I want to try with this, but I don't know if it's actually going to be good. Honestly, I actually do know it's not going to be good. 1.9 from chat. Yeah, we're pretty much on the same page. Same page, sorry. Yeah. The icons are really good, right? The icons are really good. This card feels great for Tommy. Been playing since that card came out. Yeah, Tommy and, like, Hank are, like, the two. I could also see it in Yorick. Because he can, like, return those assets. But I think overall, it's just, like, really clumsy. But I do agree that Tommy is probably the place that... I think we said that last time, too. I'm getting major deja vu. But yeah. Because I think the idea that I had for this deck was like a blessed Preston deck that uses Spirit of Humanity, and then like the cheap rogue allies, and then like you just kill them all and draw a bunch of cards and like replenish your hand. I think that was the deck. I think I have it written down somewhere on one of my notepads in front of me. But yeah, I think the card's just a little bit awkward. Speaking of a card that's not awkward, because it's just like turns out the easiest card to use is, it does heal Hank because you're removing the damage, yes. It's Long Shot. I think this is still a 5. Like, the contemplative card that this is the mirror that came out in Drowned City, I think is going to be less impactful than Long Shot, but still pretty good. But I think the reason why Long Shot is so good is because extra damage is juicier and usually more impactful than just an extra clue. Turns out, though, this card is actually incredibly relevant for that evade text as well. You don't know how many times in this last year where I would be like, I'm going to evade an enemy, and then someone was like, I'll throw a brick at them. And you're like, oh shit, you're throwing a brick at this motherfucker while I'm doing this? Like, that's pretty sick. I think like a 4.5 is probably a pretty good rating, and it's looking like that's where chat is going to end up. But I'm going to stick with my 5. Just because I do think the card has been that impactful over the last year, and I think that it's going to continue to remain that impactful, right? I think it's a sweet card, and I think it's just a very powerful piece. Like I said, a 4.5 makes total sense, but I'm going to stick with this guy in the 5. Oh, the added connected location. Oh, yeah. I should also say Atomic, because you're 100% right. All those times where I evaded an enemy and someone threw a brick at them, they were at another location as well. Huge. Huge. All right, we're on to our 3 neutral cards, and we're going to start here with Eldritch Tongue. Two cost, takes up the arcane slot, it uses 4 charges. You may play events with Parlay from your discard pile as if they were in your hand. As additional cost to play an event this way, spend 1 charge from Eldritch Tongue. After that event resolves, remove it from the game. Yeah, great card, but only in Parlay decks. It is. It's basically just Parlay tech. I think the card's very good, though. I'm going to give it a 3.5. The effect is very powerful. Let's see if I did that exact same thing last year. I did! I did. Apparently Snitch works with it. Well, yeah, it says Parlay on it, right, in quotes. It's the Google search. Yeah, it's Google search rules. I'm fine with that, but I'm not fine with Alessandra being able to see Parlay in flavor text. All right, chat, what are you giving it? I'm actually going to try something out here. 3.1. Man, I'm not going to complain about that. I think that's pretty fair. I still think the effect's very powerful for Parlay decks. You're never going to cut this if you're playing a Parlay deck. So that's what pushed it to a 3.5 for me personally. Well, you don't want Alessandro to have that survivor skill? No. All right. They have included it, so it does search when you search it on ARKHAM build. But yeah, no, I do not think that reminder text should count as card text. That's just, I mean, that's not me, that's also Bryn. Bryn hates that ruling. One out of every 3 streaming days, Bryn comes in saying, oh, I hate Alessandra, she could play that card. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. But it is a little bit fricked up. Okay. Next up, we got Bide Your Time. Let's get over here. Okay. 0 cost event. That's a double. As it costs to play Bide Your Time, spend an action during your next turn, take 2 additional actions. Yeah, it's fine. Put in the 2.5s, I think. Hey, it got an upgrade! Nice job! I've seen it play to good effect this last year, but you usually end up cutting it, right? This is weirdly useful for Marion. Marion is going to crack a bunch of events wide fucking open, isn't she? There are so many events that it's just going to be like, wait a minute, Marion is insane with this? And I'm very excited for that. I love her design. I think she's going to be a great investigator for the game, and I think she's going to be impossibly fun to play. You use this on the turn before a boss shows up. And you just take some extra actions for that. You usually cut it. Because I think that just like... chat's giving it a 2 from a 2.2. The big thing about Bide Your Time and why it's cut pretty quick is because bosses generally become easier as your deck gets stronger, but at level 0, bosses are the hardest. So like, for example, this card's really good in like Carcosa, where you can use this the turn before... You can use the first one the turn before Big Butt Baby shows up, and you can use the second one the turn before Big Butt Baby shows up again, right? And I think that's why this card is pretty alright. Alright, last card, and we're ending with a banger. I'm pretty sure we spoiled this card. Well Dressed. Do you guys see that double scan at the bottom? What the hell's happening there? That's crazy. That's probably my mistake. I probably just didn't put it in the right frame the right way. Anyways, Well Dressed. Practice Fortune while Well Dressed is committed to a skill test during a parlay action against Wild, Wild, Wild. It's, I think, fine, but not on the upper side of fine. I think it like goes pretty low. I'm going to give it a 2. Wow, Bide Your Time and Well Dressed swapped. I think it's a good tech card, but even in my parlay decks, I think I want to be cutting this pretty quick. Because, like, I'd rather just run, like, boosts, you know? I'd rather just make myself just, like, better or, like, hyper-focus on a specific effect. I do like it. My favorite use for this card is actually Campaign Tech, where you bring it into... 2.9 for chat. They stayed the exact same. Good job, chat. Where using it for like Carcosa or Forgotten Age are the things I like most. Yep, it's a tech card for Forgotten Age. The first scenario. Even the third scenario. There is some extremely pivotal parlays in Forgotten Age Scenario 1 that can mean the difference between having a great time or having an awful time. Well, chat, we did it. We can't, unfortunately, look at the difference between the 2 years just due to the nature of we have so much that we need to fill out still. But good start, and I think that here, let's look at this one now because this is the exciting thing. Overall, as you can see, it's a pretty impactful level 0. I know you might be thinking, but Justin, there's so many cards that are down here. But, like, there were a lot of just nice level 0 cards in this box that really did a good job for the card pool. So yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Next week or the week after, we're going to be doing the experience cards on YouTube, and honestly, Friday is probably going to be the video of recording the experience cards for this. We're going to just keep striking while the iron's hot, etc., etc. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your day, whenever you're watching, wherever you're watching, whoever you're watching, whatever you're watching on, all that stuff. I'm just sending good vibes your way. And I can't believe I talked for 2 hours and 50 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's.